Hey guys, welcome to lesson 5 of the Uncertainty series. Next week we'll be finishing this series with lesson 6 and talking about unity, but I want us to talk about stress and anxiety today. We're anxious because we miss our friends at school or our friends from youth group. We feel stressed because we don't know what's going to happen next. We've been annoyed with each other because we've been stuck at home for so long and spending too much time together. The list goes on. I think you're going to find this passage from the Bible to be very helpful, though. Take a look at John chapter 15, verses 4 through 5. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. In these verses, Jesus uses an interesting comparison. He points out that a vine, it needs to be connected to the branches to produce fruit. Well, the vine here, it represents God. And when we, the branches, stay connected to God, good things happen in our lives. We experience peace, joy, and love, no matter what circumstances we face. Even when we're in quarantine, even if we lose our jobs, even if things get worse due to COVID-19, no matter what, if we stay connected to God, we can find peace in the chaos. Take a look at Galatians chapter 5, 22 through 23. But the Spirit produces the fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. There is no law that says these things are wrong. These characteristics are produced in our lives because of the Holy Spirit, not because we earn these qualities if we're good enough. They are the fruit of the Spirit. Peace, joy, love, etc. They naturally flow out of our lives when we stay connected to God. These things will be produced in us, just like fruit is naturally produced on a branch that's connected to a vine or a tree that's connected to the earth. It just happens. It's the way God made everything to function. Often we experience high levels of stress and anxiety, and the issue is that we're not making it a point to connect with God. Instead, we're getting caught up in everything else going on around us. So how do you stay connected to God? You might have heard that it all comes down to making your relationship with Jesus a priority. If you make a list of things that are important in your life, Jesus needs to be number one. Although there's truth in that, here's another perspective that can be helpful. Let's look at a bicycle wheel with spokes. Now, let's say that our lives are this wheel, and the things in our lives, school, friends, sports, etc., those are the spokes. Now, notice that all the spokes start at some point on the tire and meet at the center. Now, let's say Jesus is the center. Jesus touches everything we do in our lives. He's at the center of everything. He's a part of everything we do. He's always working in our lives and those around us. Each of us has a choice as to what we put in the center of our lives. When we put Jesus in the center, good stuff happens. Instead of being overwhelmed by stress and anxiety, we experience peace and joy in that chaos. Sometimes our circumstances change, but sometimes nothing changes. We often have no control over what happens in our lives, but we do have control over what we put in the center. So let's take a moment, really think about these questions here. What do you put in the center of your life? How can you put Jesus in the center? Do you think other people can tell if Jesus is in the center of everything? Okay, now let's move on to another idea that we can talk about. Check out 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10 with me. So that I would not become too proud of the wonderful things that were shown to me, a painful physical problem was given to me. This problem was a messenger from Satan, sent to beat me and keep me from being too proud. I begged the Lord 3 times to take this problem away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is enough for you. When you are weak, my power is made perfect in you." So I'm very happy to brag about my weaknesses. Then Christ's power can live in me. For this reason, I'm happy when I have weaknesses, insults, hard times, sufferings, and all kinds of troubles for Christ, because when I'm weak, then I'm truly strong. Now, we don't know what Paul's painful physical problem was. Other versions of the Bible call it a thorn in the flesh. But Paul had an issue that he wanted God to remove. And however, God told him, no. He said that my grace is enough for you. When you are weak, my power is made perfect in you. So what does that mean? God's definition of strength is complete dependence on him. In fact, if we read the last 2 verses, we see that Paul decides that his weakness is a good thing. So how can Paul be weak and strong at the same time? In our weakness, God's strength is revealed. We find his strength in our weakness. If you think about it, the uncertainty we're living with right now is a form of weakness. Life is no longer predictable. We don't know what will happen in a week or even a month. Paul is encouraging us to rely on God's strength right now. Humble yourself to recognize you're weak. Know that God is strong and learn to lean on him. This is a really great example of how we can put Jesus at the center of our lives, recognizing that we're weak, he's strong. And we're asking him to strengthen us in the midst of the circumstances we face. It's the only way for us to experience peace and joy rather than stress and anxiety. So let me leave you with a couple of questions. What causes you the most stress and anxiety right now? What situations do you think cause the most stress in our family? How do you usually deal with stress and anxiety? In other words, what helps you feel better when you experience those emotions? And finally, what does it look like for you to put Jesus at the center of your life? What's confusing or difficult to you about that idea? Thanks for joining us for lesson 5 in the Uncertainty series. Come back next week for our final lesson in this series, where we'll be talking about unity. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You'll find links to that on our website, sunsetyouthgroup.com. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can always email us at sunsetyouthministry@gmail.com. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll see you next week.